We're talking about maps that were drawn roughly between the 1300s and the 1700s. In other words, in relatively recent history. However, these maps were largely based on much older source maps, which they copied. And we can say that for sure, because one of the famous maps is the Piri Reis map.
What if 500-year-old maps show coastlines with satellite-level precision that shouldn't have been possible without aerial surveying? Graham Hancock has uncovered evidence so explosive that mainstream archaeologists are desperately trying to silence him. Ancient charts displaying ice-free Antarctica, perfectly mapped continents, and geographical knowledge that predates official discovery by thousands of years. The Piri Reis map from 1513 shows Antarctica's true coastline beneath the ice. Details that we only confirmed with modern radar technology. But here's what's truly terrifying. These maps suggest a lost civilization possessed technology rivaling our own satellites, mapping the entire globe 12,000 years ago before a catastrophic event wiped them from history, leaving only fragments of their impossible knowledge. The man who dared to challenge history.
I don't really know of any ancient civilization which achieved a high level of functioning which didn't use psychedelics. Psychedelics were astonishingly widely used in the ancient world.
Graham Hancock isn't your typical researcher. This British author and journalist has spent decades digging into mysteries that mainstream archaeology would rather ignore. Born in Edinburgh in 1950, Hancock worked as a foreign correspondent for publications like The Economist and The Times before embarking on his journey into alternative archaeology. His academic background in sociology from Durham University gave him the analytical skills to question established narratives, but it was his investigative journalism experience that taught him to dig deeper when official stories don't add up. With best-selling books like Fingerprints of the Gods, Magicians of the Gods, and his recent Netflix series Ancient Apocalypse, Hancock has built a massive following of people hungry for alternative explanations about our ancient past. His work has sold millions of copies worldwide and has been translated into dozens of languages, proving that there's a genuine thirst for challenging conventional archaeological wisdom. What sets Hancock apart is his willingness to ask uncomfortable questions that make establishment academics squirm. But here's where things get interesting and controversial. In April 2024, Hancock debated Flint Dibble, a professor of archaeology at Cardiff University, who strongly rebutted Hancock's ideas on Joe Rogan's podcast. The debate was watched by millions, and many thought this would silence Hancock once and for all. Dibble came armed with charts, graphs, and the full weight of academic authority behind him. The archaeological establishment seemed to believe they had finally cornered the man they considered their biggest threat. Instead, it seems to have only fueled Hancock's determination to share what he believes are earth-shattering discoveries about ancient cartography. Rather than backing down, Hancock has doubled down on his research, claiming that the debate only proved how desperate mainstream archaeology is to suppress alternative viewpoints. He argues that instead of engaging with his evidence, they resort to character assassination and attempts to silence him completely. The establishment has been trying to discredit Hancock for years, calling him a pseudo-archaeologist and dismissing his theories as fantasy. The Society for American Archaeology has issued official statements warning against his work, claiming it promotes harmful pseudoscientific ideas. Academic journals refuse to publish his research, and universities actively discourage students from taking his theories seriously. It's a coordinated campaign that raises serious questions about academic freedom and open inquiry. But what if they're wrong? What if there's something they don't want us to know about these mysterious ancient maps? What if Hancock has stumbled onto evidence so profound that it threatens to topple decades of established archaeological dogma? The more they try to silence him, the more intriguing his theories become. And nowhere is this more apparent than in his research into impossible ancient maps. The maps we're about to explore aren't just historical curiosities. They might be the smoking gun that proves human civilization is far older and more sophisticated than we've ever imagined. And if Hancock is right, these maps represent knowledge that could only have come from a lost civilization that possessed technology and geographical understanding that rivals our own modern capabilities. The mysterious Piri Reis map, a cartographic impossibility. Let's talk about the crown jewel of Hancock's evidence, the famous Piri Reis map. This world map was compiled in 1513 by the Ottoman admiral and cartographer Piri Reis.
In 1929, rolled up on a dusty shelf in a library in Constantinople in Turkey, a map was found. This map had been drawn in 1513 by a Turkish admiral, Admiral Piri Reis.
With approximately 1/3 of the map surviving today, housed in the Topkapi Palace in Istanbul. The map itself is a staggeringly beautiful and intricately detailed nautical chart called a Portolan chart, including compass roses and extensively notated in Ottoman Turkish. What makes this map extraordinary isn't just its age, but the impossible accuracy it displays for geographical features that Europeans supposedly hadn't discovered yet. Piri Reis was no ordinary mapmaker. He was one of the most skilled naval commanders of his era, a man who understood the critical importance of accurate navigation for successful maritime expeditions. Born around 1465, he served under his uncle, the famous corsair Kemal Reis, before becoming an admiral in the Ottoman fleet. His expertise in naval warfare and navigation made him acutely aware of the value of precise cartographic information. When he created his world map, he wasn't just drawing pretty pictures. He was compiling the most accurate geographical knowledge available to create a tool that could mean the difference between life and death for sailors. Now, here's where things get mind-blowing. This 500-year-old map shows something that should be impossible: incredibly accurate depictions of coastlines that Europeans supposedly hadn't discovered yet. The eastern coastline of South America is rendered with remarkable precision, showing geographical features that wouldn't be properly surveyed by European explorers for decades to come. The Caribbean islands are positioned with an accuracy that shouldn't have been possible with the navigation tools available in 1513. Even more astounding, the map shows parts of the North American coast with a level of detail that suggests the cartographer had access to comprehensive surveys of these regions. Despite being over 500 years old, the map is surprisingly accurate, including detailed coastlines and geographic features that align closely with modern maps. When researchers have compared the Piri Reis map to satellite imagery and modern cartographic data, the correlations are uncanny. River systems, coastal indentations, and even inland geographical features match up with a precision that defies explanation. This isn't just a lucky guess or artistic interpretation. This is cartographic knowledge that demonstrates a sophisticated understanding of global geography. But wait, it gets even more incredible. Some researchers claim this map shows Antarctica. Not just any Antarctica, but Antarctica as it would have looked without ice. The southern portion of the map appears to show a large land mass that bears a striking resemblance to the Antarctic continent. But here's the kicker. This landmass is depicted with coastlines, rivers, and even what appear to be mountain ranges. If this is indeed Antarctica, then we're looking at the continent as it existed thousands of years ago, before it was covered by the massive ice sheets that blanket it today. Think about that for a moment. Antarctica wasn't officially discovered until 1820, over 300 years after this map was created. And the continent has been covered in ice for thousands of years, making it impossible for any 16th century explorer to have seen its actual landmass beneath the ice. Yet here, we have a map that appears to show not just the existence of Antarctica, but its detailed geography as it would appear without its ice covering. This is either the most remarkable coincidence in cartographic history or evidence of knowledge that shouldn't exist. So how could a 16th century Turkish admiral have access to information this much accurate? Hancock believes the answer lies in much older source materials, maps that Piri Reis himself claimed came from ancient libraries, including the legendary Library of Alexandria. In the notes accompanying his map, Piri Reis explicitly states that he used over 20 source maps, some dating back to the time of Alexander the Great. If these ancient sources contained geographical knowledge from a lost civilization, it would explain how a 16th century cartographer could create a map that rivals modern satellite imagery in its accuracy. The Antarctica controversy. Ice-free coastlines from 12,000 years ago. This is where Hancock's theory gets really wild and where the controversy reaches fever pitch. In 1960, Lieutenant Colonel Harold Ohlmeyer, commander of the 8th Reconnaissance Technical Squadron of the U.S. Air Force, conducted a detailed analysis of the Piri Reis map at the request of cartographic enthusiasts. His analysis remarked that the map seemed to show the coastline of Queen Maud Land in Antarctica free of ice, a condition it had not been in for some 9,000 years. This wasn't just casual speculation from an amateur enthusiast. This was a professional military assessment from someone with extensive experience in aerial reconnaissance and cartographic analysis. Let's break this down and consider the staggering implications. If this map really shows Antarctica without ice, we're talking about geographical knowledge that predates known civilization by thousands of years. The last time Antarctica's coastline was visible would have been during the end of the last ice age, roughly 12,000 years ago, when global sea levels were dramatically different and ice coverage was significantly reduced. During this period, much of what we now know as Antarctica would have been a habitable landmass with rivers, forests, and possibly even human settlements. But here's what makes this so controversial and why it challenges everything we've been taught. Mainstream archaeology tells us that 12,000 years ago, humans were just starting to develop agriculture. We're supposed to believe that our ancestors were hunter-gatherers living in caves, struggling to survive in a harsh post-Ice Age world. The official narrative suggests that complex civilizations didn't emerge until around 5,000 years ago in places like Mesopotamia and Egypt. The idea that sophisticated cartographers were mapping Antarctica 12,000 years ago seems to fly in the face of everything we think we know about human development. Yet, the geological evidence strongly supports the possibility that Antarctica was indeed ice-free during this period. Core samples taken from the Antarctic ice sheet show clear evidence of dramatic climate changes at the end of the last ice age. Paleoclimatologists have confirmed that there were periods.
Paleoclimatology is the study of the climates of the past. Paleoclimate records consist of a lot of efforts by geologists and ecologists and other scientists.
When Antarctica experienced much warmer conditions and parts of the continent would have been habitable. If humans were present during these warmer periods, they would have had access to the coastlines and geographical features depicted in the Piri Reis map. Hancock argues that this map is proof of what he calls a lost civilization, an advanced society that existed before the Great Cataclysm at the end of the Ice Age, a civilization so advanced that they were able to map the entire world, including places that wouldn't be officially discovered for thousands of years. This isn't just speculation based on a single map. It's part of a larger pattern of evidence that suggests human civilization is far older and more sophisticated than we've been taught. From the precision of ancient monuments to the advanced astronomical knowledge of prehistoric cultures, there are hints everywhere that our ancestors were capable of remarkable achievements. The implications of an ice-free Antarctica being accurately mapped 12,000 years ago extend far beyond archaeology. They challenge our understanding of climate history, human migration patterns, and the development of technology itself. If ancient peoples possessed the ability to navigate and map Antarctica during its ice-free period, what other capabilities might they have had? What kind of maritime technology would be required to reach Antarctica and conduct detailed coastal surveys? These questions force us to reconsider not just the timeline of human civilization, but the sophistication of our ancient ancestors. Critics of Hancock's theory argue that the Antarctic features on the Piri Reis map are simply artistic interpretation, or that the landmass represents something other than Antarctica entirely. However, the geographical correlations are difficult to dismiss, especially when considered alongside other evidence of advanced ancient knowledge. The precision of the coastlines, the positioning of geographical features, and the overall accuracy of the map suggest access to information that goes far beyond lucky guesswork or artistic imagination. The Portolan charts, medieval maps with ancient secrets. The Piri Reis map isn't the only one that raises eyebrows, and this is where Graham Hancock's research takes on an even more compelling dimension. He has long argued that other medieval maps, especially the Portolan charts, created between the 13th and 15th centuries, contain knowledge that should have been impossible for their time. These maps didn't just reflect the skills of medieval sailors, they seemed to preserve fragments of a much older cartographic tradition. Passed down through generations of mariners and map makers, this knowledge may have been copied faithfully without its true origins being fully understood, leaving us with an enduring mystery of how such information survived through the ages. The Portolan charts were among the most advanced maritime navigation tools of the medieval world. They contained compass roses, intricate coastal outlines, and detailed sailing routes that guided merchants across the Mediterranean and beyond. Their sudden appearance, with no gradual development from less sophisticated maps, has puzzled historians for centuries. It was as if medieval cartographers had suddenly been handed a set of incredibly precise templates, enabling them to leap centuries ahead in their understanding of geography. This abrupt sophistication suggests access to source material that was far older and far more advanced than anything medieval Europe could have produced on its own. Hancock points out that some of these charts display features that modern science has only confirmed through satellite imaging and computer modeling. Coastlines that would have been visible only during the last ice age, when sea levels were hundreds of feet lower, appear clearly on several Portolan maps. These include submerged landmasses and ancient shorelines that had long disappeared beneath the ocean by the Middle Ages. Such accuracy challenges the idea that these maps were purely products of medieval navigation, suggesting instead that they may have been drawn from source material originating thousands of years earlier, possibly from a civilization advanced enough to chart the world during the Ice Age. The sophistication of the Portolan charts also extends beyond their geography into mathematics and cartographic science. To create such maps, the original compilers would have needed to understand trigonometry, spherical geometry, and projection methods far beyond what mainstream history acknowledges for the time. Their precision in showing latitude and longitude relationships, accurate wind patterns, and detailed coastal features would not be equaled until the invention of modern surveying instruments centuries later. This leads Hancock to argue that the Portolan charts may not just be medieval artifacts but evidence of a forgotten global mapping tradition, preserved from a civilization that mastered mathematics, navigation, and geography to a degree that rivals even our modern knowledge. The silence of the establishment. Why don't they want us to know? The fiercest clash between Graham Hancock and mainstream archaeology lies in the refusal of institutions to even entertain his claims. When the Society for American Archaeology branded his work dangerous pseudoscience, it wasn't framed as debate, but as outright dismissal. almost as if the goal was to erase his theories from serious consideration. To Hancock's supporters, this looks less like healthy skepticism and more like an orchestrated effort to protect an established worldview from being destabilized. If these maps truly contained echoes of lost civilizations,
archaeologists have discovered a huge ancient city hidden underground in Mexico, which may give a better understanding of the Maya civilization.
the consequences would be staggering. Accepted timelines of human progress would collapse, textbooks would need rewriting, and the careers of scholars who built their reputations on conventional narratives would be threatened. In such a scenario, the academic world isn't just defending ideas, it's defending its own survival. That creates fertile ground for accusations that what we're seeing is less science and more gatekeeping. Critics don't just dispute Hancock's evidence, they go after the man himself. Rather than dissecting the cartographic precision he points to, they focus on his lack of formal training, dismiss his theories as entertainment, and push for his exclusion from platforms that give him visibility. The intensity of these reactions suggests that the challenge he represents cuts deeper than mere disagreement. Hancock counters that if ancient civilizations were largely maritime, much of their evidence now lies submerged under oceans, which mainstream archaeology has barely explored. In this light, what's presented as absence of proof might simply be proof of absence of exploration. The Lost Library of Alexandria connection. One of Hancock's most compelling threads ties the Piri Reis map back to the fabled Library of Alexandria, the ancient world's unmatched hub of knowledge. Piri Reis himself claimed that some of his sources derived from documents preserved in that legendary institution, which once gathered maps, treatises, and records from every corner of the known world. To imagine the library at its height is to imagine humanity's earliest attempt at a global archive, an institution that could easily have safeguarded records of civilizations far older than we realize. Although the library's destruction is remembered as a catastrophic loss, it wasn't erased overnight. Its decline stretched over centuries, and in that time countless texts would have been copied, dispersed, and preserved in private or monastic collections. Hancock suggests that fragments of this ancient knowledge survived through Islamic centers of learning and eventually filtered into Europe, where they influenced medieval cartographers. This could explain why maps, like Piri Reis, display a strange mixture of uncanny accuracy alongside obvious medieval errors. They were working from sources they didn't fully understand. If the library truly contained maps of an Ice Age world with ice-free coastlines and exposed continental shelves, then the idea that such knowledge reached cartographers like Piri Reis no longer seems far-fetched. The library was known for aggressively collecting geographical records, and if a forgotten seafaring civilization once mapped the globe, their charts could have been housed there. What makes this especially persuasive is that Piri Reis himself openly acknowledged the library's role in preserving ancient sources. That admission suggests we may not just be looking at a curious medieval artifact, but at a surviving echo of a much older, far more advanced understanding of our planet. The advanced cartographic techniques. Too sophisticated for the time? Let's talk about something that shakes even the most hardened skeptics: the incredible sophistication of these ancient maps and the sheer mathematical precision they display. The Piri Reis map, for example, has been suggested by some researchers to contain data so accurate it almost looks as if it were surveyed from space. That claim may sound outrageous, but when you really examine the level of detail and accuracy on display, the conventional narrative collapses. These charts don't just look impressive. They present a kind of precision that should have been mathematically impossible with the rudimentary navigation techniques supposedly available in the early 1500s. Take longitude and latitude as an example. In 1513, when Piri Reis compiled his famous chart, European navigators were still fumbling with basic methods of navigation. and the problem of calculating longitude wouldn't be solved for another 2 centuries. Yet here we have a map that seems to anticipate modern surveying standards, showing coastlines with uncanny accuracy and geographical relationships that require advanced trigonometry and an understanding of the Earth's curvature. These aren't artistic guesses or lucky approximations. They are mathematical constructions that imply knowledge of spherical geometry, projection methods, and surveying techniques no historian attributes to the age. This raises a serious question. How could cartographers working half a millennium ago, or even earlier, produce charts that rival modern satellite imagery? Graham Hancock argues that the answer lies not in chance or crude exploration, but in the survival of source materials from a much older, far more advanced civilization. According to this view, the maps we admire today may be imperfect copies of master surveys taken thousands of years ago using techniques we can barely comprehend. If true, this would mean that humanity once achieved a level of technological capability, possibly including aerial or orbital surveying, that was lost to history, leaving us to rediscover what our ancestors already knew. The flood evidence. What happened 12,000 years ago? Graham Hancock's theory proposes that around 12,000 years ago, Earth faced a cataclysm, possibly from comet impacts or rapid climate change, that triggered massive flooding, sea level rise, and the destruction of coastal civilizations, with evidence preserved in geological records, ice cores, and ancient flood myths. The Younger Dryas period, a dramatic climate event roughly 12,800 years ago, adds weight to this idea, with signs of sudden cooling and warming linked to possible comet fragments. Geological markers, like microscopic diamonds, and impact materials in sediments support the cosmic collision hypothesis. Hancock also highlights discoveries such as 23,000-year-old footprints in the Americas, which challenge mainstream archaeology by suggesting humans were present far earlier and may have belonged to more capable societies that later vanished due to catastrophic events. Taken together, flood myths, geological evidence, and ancient maps raise the possibility of a lost advanced civilization whose knowledge was partly preserved, reminding us that human progress may be cyclical and fragile, vulnerable to natural disasters that can erase entire cultures from history. The modern cover-up. Recent attacks on Hancock's work. Graham Hancock's Netflix series, Ancient Apocalypse, brought his controversial theories to a global audience, but it also intensified attacks from mainstream archaeologists who argue that his claims about man-made structures based on remote sensing lack proper excavation evidence. Yet instead of debating the data, many critics resorted to personal attacks, labeling him a pseudoscientist and pressuring platforms to silence his work, revealing a deeper reluctance to challenge established narratives. The backlash reached new heights with coordinated campaigns by academic institutions, rebuttals, boycotts, and even a heated debate with archaeologist Flint Dibble on Joe Rogan's podcast, which many viewers saw as an ambush targeting Hancock's credibility rather than his evidence. This pattern of response raises questions about why open debate is being avoided if his theories are supposedly easy to disprove with evidence. What makes the criticism particularly troubling is its focus on censorship rather than scholarly engagement, exposing wider issues about academic freedom and the suppression of alternative viewpoints. By discouraging research into unorthodox ideas and punishing dissent, institutions risk appearing more interested in protecting orthodoxy than pursuing truth, which only makes Hancock's theories about lost civilizations and ancient maps seem more intriguing to the public. The cartographic evidence mounts. Other mysterious maps. The Piri Reis map is only the beginning of a much larger mystery. Dozens of other maps, like the Orontius Phineas of 1531, Mercator's 1569 world map, and Boachi's 1739 chart, depict Antarctica and other regions with striking accuracy, long before their official discoveries, often showing details such as rivers, mountains, and even Antarctica's subglacial topography that align with modern satellite and radar surveys. These maps consistently portray a world far beyond the supposed capabilities of the eras in which they were drawn. What makes them even more compelling is their shared source of knowledge. From the Haji Ahmed map of 1559 with its precise Pacific coastlines to the Dulcert map of 1339 with its advanced European and African depictions, the accuracy and consistency across centuries suggest they weren't independent guesses, but copies from an older, far more advanced cartographic tradition. Many of these maps even show Antarctica without ice, hinting at a time thousands of years ago when it was habitable and surveyed, raising the possibility that this information came from a civilization predating the Ice Age. The mathematical sophistication behind these maps deepens the enigma. Their use of spherical geometry, trigonometry, and advanced projection techniques implies a scientific knowledge that mainstream history claims didn't exist at the time. Taken together, these maps may represent the preserved fragments of a lost civilization that once had the means to chart the globe with astonishing precision, leaving behind one of the greatest unsolved puzzles about humanity's forgotten past. The technology question. Satellites in ancient times? One of the most astonishing aspects of Graham Hancock's theory is the idea that the precision of ancient maps like the Piri Reis chart suggests the use of advanced technology, possibly even aerial or satellite-based surveying, far beyond what conventional history attributes to ancient civilizations. These maps display accurate coastlines, precise longitudinal and latitudinal relationships, and global consistency that ground-based methods alone could hardly achieve, raising doubts about traditional explanations. Some researchers propose that the maps could only have been created using aerial perspectives, with accuracy so extraordinary it rivals modern satellite imagery. Features such as Antarctica's subglacial topography, confirmed centuries later by radar and satellites, suggest access to advanced surveying methods. If achieved without flight or orbital perspectives, it would require an implausible level of mathematical coordination, communication, and global exploration thousands of years before known history allows. The technological implications stretch beyond mapping, hinting at sophisticated instruments, measurement systems, and organizational capabilities associated with modern societies. If such knowledge existed 12,000 years ago, it challenges the belief in linear technological progress and raises the possibility that a lost civilization may have possessed capabilities we are only now rediscovering, fundamentally rewriting our assumptions about humanity's past. The global implications. Rewriting human history. If Hancock's interpretation of these maps is correct, it would overturn the conventional narrative of human history, replacing the idea of steady, linear progress with a cyclical model where advanced civilizations rise, collapse, and leave behind fragments of knowledge that later societies inherit. This view would explain anomalies like the sudden appearance of advanced mathematics, astronomy, and engineering in ancient cultures, as well as the global consistency of flood myths and megalithic monuments that seem far beyond the capabilities traditionally attributed to their builders. The maps could be the strongest surviving evidence of a lost Ice Age civilization with global reach, advanced navigation, and technological knowledge rivaling or even surpassing our own. Their accuracy suggests mastery of mathematics, astronomy, and geography, raising questions about what other capabilities, such as metallurgy, precision manufacturing, or even aerial technology, might have been lost in a global catastrophe. If so, humanity's achievements may not represent unique progress, but rediscovery after repeated cycles of collapse and renewal. Such implications stretch beyond archaeology into our understanding of human potential and the fragility of civilization itself. Accepting Hancock's claims would demand rewriting entire academic disciplines and rethinking how we preserve knowledge in the face of potential future catastrophes. These maps, then, aren't just curiosities. They could be windows into a forgotten chapter of human history that fundamentally alters how we see ourselves, our past, and our future. The ongoing investigation. New evidence emerges. Graham Hancock continues to push his theories forward despite criticism, highlighting sites like Seybirch and Göbekli Tepe that suggest human sophistication far earlier than mainstream archaeology accepts. These megalithic sites, dating back over 11,000 years, reveal advanced engineering, artistry, and organization that align with Hancock's claims of an Ice Age civilization possessing knowledge beyond what conventional timelines allow. As more evidence surfaces from Turkey and beyond, the idea of global prehistoric networks becomes increasingly plausible, challenging the notion that complex societies suddenly emerged thousands of years later. The architectural feats, astronomical alignments, and large-scale coordination found at these ancient sites raise questions about whether advanced cartography and exploration might have been part of the same hidden legacy. Together with geological evidence of catastrophic events, mysterious maps, and new archaeological findings, Hancock's work paints a picture of a far older, more advanced human story than we've been taught. Each discovery adds weight to the possibility that our history is incomplete, hinting at forgotten civilizations and knowledge that may yet transform our understanding of who we are. Graham Hancock's controversial claims about ancient maps highlight mysteries that challenge mainstream archaeology. From the uncanny accuracy of the Piri Reis map to depictions of ice-free Antarctica, suggesting knowledge far beyond what should have been possible centuries ago. Whether viewed as evidence of a lost advanced civilization or dismissed as speculation, these charts reveal a level of precision and sophistication that conventional history struggles to explain, raising profound questions about human potential, forgotten technologies, and the true complexity of our past. Are these ancient maps proof of a lost advanced civilization or just misunderstood history? Like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more mind-bending discoveries.